David Wilcock is a really stellar individual, as everyone here knows, and we thank him very much for being who he is and for putting himself in such a dedicated place to serve humanity with his life. And we honor him for that, and we stand right at his side, okay? So that doesn't mean we agree on everything or how it'll roll out or this or that, but in the main, we agree, all right? And we're very happy to present him here today. David Wilcock.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. All right, we do have a lot of material to cover. We don't have a lot of time. How many people here need a bathroom break, or are you ready to just keep going? Just go? All right. Now, you video guys, do you need me to wear a lavalier mic for the video recording? Or you're okay? All right. The other thing is, if you guys are doing this live streaming, can you cut back and forth between my slides and my face as it's going out live? Can you do that? Okay. Because there's going to be a lot of slides and they will go fairly quickly. Okay, now we've gotten the business taken care of. Let's get down to the real work, which is this subject of 2012. What I will be proposing tonight is definitely not your typical approach to 2012. It is very important to understand on an intrinsic level that what we are dealing with is not channeling, it is not Mayan prophecy, it is not ancient religious teaching, it is not speculation, it is not psychic, it does not require anything except the exacting measurement of the scientific process and the insight to be able to take information that has already been put out there by NASA, by mainstream scientists studying the mysteries of what it means to be a biological life form, the mysteries of the solar system, the mysteries of energy and matter, and how does matter and energy truly function. When you start looking at the hidden mysteries of science, which are already out there now, you find out that the human species is undergoing a massive evolutionary process right now, and I'm going to prove that to you. I'm going to prove to you that the nature of this evolutionary process fundamentally rewrites DNA and biological life to such an extreme that within one generation, I will show you the proof in this presentation, that a creature can give birth to something that becomes an entirely different species than the creature that it came out of the womb from. And that there is nothing more that needs to be done to create that energetic change, but to simply zap the embryo with a light wave that comes from another embryo that has the genetic pattern that you wish to transfer. The only way that this makes any sense is to begin seeing DNA as susceptible to quantum wave effects. You may have seen, most of you have probably seen 2012 Enigma, which is a video of mine I'm proud to say was #1 most viewed on Google December 1st of last year. And the reason why it got that way is because the information has rocked the internet. It has led to my getting the starring position on a sci-fi documentary coming out in November on Sci-Fi Network. It's led to Penguin contacting me to write a book based on the video, one of the biggest publishing companies out there. It's led to my working with, I'm going to say this now publicly, Jim Hart, who wrote the movie Contact with Jodie Foster. That's our screenwriter. Thank you. I'm working on Wander Awakening, which is the album cover you see here in the slide, with a 9-time Grammy-winning musician, Larry Sire. The reason why all this big talent and why all this attention is being focused here is not because I may have been somebody else in another lifetime. It's not because I have done psychic readings. It's not because I put prophecies on the internet that later were shown to come true. The biggest thing that I bring to the planet right now is to simply look at ancient prophecies that we know to exist, that we can document in great detail, and to then give a scientific framework for these prophecies on such an advanced level that we're looking at things in an entirely different way. So let's get back to 2012 Enigma for a minute. Most of you have seen that video. You may remember that I discuss an experiment that was conducted in which a tiny, what's called buckyball, was shot through a grating, and the grating is 100 nanometers wide. The buckyball itself is only about 1 or 2 nanometers wide. It goes through the grating and it turns into a wave. The buckyball itself, which is supposed to be a macroscopic object, goes through this little slit, and for whatever reason it turns into a non-local wave. Now, what does quantum non-locality really mean? It means that you don't know where the wave is in space, and you also don't know where the wave is in time. Quantum non-locality shows that the more you try to find out where it is in time, the less you can find it in space. The more you try to find out where it is in space, the less you can find it in time. And if you look at the quantum physics equations, it's well known in quantum mechanics, the time has to be both backwards, forwards. It has to be completely nonlinear in the traditional sense. Albert Einstein has given us the theory of relativity. The theory of relativity is going to tell you that when you travel through space, it's not empty space. What did Einstein call space? He didn't call it space, he called it space-time. The reason why he called it space-time is that he said you're moving through something that makes time start running faster as you go through space. So that you could literally be inside a spaceship, leave the Earth for 2 weeks, flying at the speed of light, come back, and it's 500 years later. We know that this has been proven. It actually was done on jumbo jets flying in the highest altitude they could, where they had little watches on them, or little radioactive timekeeping devices, and they found very subtle but definite changes in the speed of time just based on the velocity of a jet going around Earth orbit. So imagine what happens when you go up towards light speed. Now, this is a proven principle in physics. As you move through space, you're also moving through the so-called time fabric, the space-time fabric, as Einstein called it. There was a mistake that Einstein made in his scientific understanding of space-time. And it may be a mistake, or it may be that he figured it out and he didn't want to talk about what he discovered. In the Einstein relativity theory, it is assumed that the only direction you can move is into the future. That space-time, the time dimension, is only one-dimensional. But we actually now know from the physics of Dewey Larson, which you'll also see on my 2012 Enigma video, that the whole way that the quantum world is being built is that there is a domain in which time, as we think of it, is three-dimensional, and space, as we think of it, is one-dimensional. And that world is constantly interchanging energy back and forth with space-time. We call it time-space over there. It's space-time over here. So this time-space realm over there is sending energy into space-time and is pinging back and forth, and that's what creates matter. The reason why this is important is that if you can get over into time-space, then you can actually travel a physical distance and return to space-time, and you have now time traveled. And it's not just the future. You can actually travel into the past. If you're traveling in the direction that the Earth is rotating, and you travel ahead of where the Earth was rotating when you left, you're going to end up in the future. because you now reemerge in space-time ahead of where the Earth was on its timeline when you left. If you travel west, that's into the past. East is the future, west is the past. And again, it's going to sound ridiculous, and for those who are uneducated, they'll blast me on the internet and say that I'm full of it. But the fact of the matter is, this is very much provable stuff. I've had people write me and say that the science in 2012 Enigma is ridiculous. Well, go to reciprocalsystem.com, read Dewey Larson's books, because there's several of them, and find out for yourself how he breaks down every single problem in quantum mechanics and shows you got to have three-dimensional time. So all we're saying is, if you can get over into time-space, it's going to look like everything does here, because every atom and molecule around me right now is here because it's exchanging with time-space. So there's time-space stuff in every place around me. That means all this stuff exists as a parallel structure in a parallel universe. And when you go over there, it becomes your three dimensions of space. It's going to look the same because the energy of it is the same energy that's here in space-time. Now here's where it gets really confusing, if it's not already confusing. See, my mind, I don't have to worry about this stuff. It comes in very naturally. You actually have an energetic pair to your physical body, which is in time-space, okay? But there are all these bonuses that your energy body has in time-space that your physical body doesn't have here. What I'm literally telling you is that every nook and cranny, every little funny fold of your brain exists as a parallel energetic structure that is coupled with the cells in your brain, that interfaces with the cells in your brain, that interfaces with every molecule of DNA in your body. And that is where all thought processes are actually occurring. They're not occurring in your nervous system at all in terms of intellect. The body does produce certain forms of thought. You have an autonomic nervous system. You have a cerebellum that keeps you from falling over. It makes sure that you're balanced by working with the fluid in the chamber of your ear, the cochlea. You have all of the basic systems that are going to make sure that your heart is beating, that your lungs are breathing, that your eyes are not taking in all the information peripherally so that you can focus on what you're looking at. You have a screening mechanism that's going to screen out background noise so that if there's a television on and somebody's talking to you, you're going to listen to them talking and not hear the television. You're not going to hear all the input and weigh it the same. Those types of things are biologically driven systems. The body makes those thoughts for you. But all of the actual intellect, all of the actual thinking that you're going to be doing in your mind is not in the body at all. You have a parallel body, a parallel brain, a parallel nervous system that is an energetic nervous system. But it doesn't look like your physical body because your physical body doesn't have billions and billions of strings coming out of it. It doesn't have an instantaneous energetic connection that you can visibly see to everything else in its environment. What I'm asking you to visualize as strings is actually simply an energy field. And in time-space, you are part of that energy field, and your mind is not simply that which is created within your own energy field. It very much is affected by all these other things that are around you, including the thoughts of other people. The very fascinating case of Norman Mailer, famous novelist who wrote a novel called Barbary Shore. In this novel, he starts out writing about one main character and gradually changes the novel to write about a Russian spy. The Russian spy becomes the focus of the entire novel. He goes into great detail. Within the same week that he finishes Barbary Shore, a Russian spy was arrested in his same building that he was living in. Just up the stairs and down the hallway. Now, does this mean that there was a conduit that was going through the air vent so that he could hear what this guy was saying? Of course not. What it does mean, though, is that that man was so emotionally charged because he was on the edge of his rope and he knew he was going to get caught, that his mind was sending out signals. And Norman Mailer's mind is an energetic phenomenon which is sensitive to its environment and picked up the signals that were being generated. Now again, I talked about the experiment where buckyballs are shot through a 100 nanometer grate, a little tiny slit. They turn into a wave just by hitting the grate. It's like it makes them flip inside out and go from space-time, where they're a particle, into time-space. That solid particle, which has 120 atoms in it, it's not just like some tiny little thing. It's a ball. It's got structure. It's got form. It's got shape. It literally popped out of our space-time entirely. It flipped over into a realm where time is three-dimensional, space is one-dimensional, and it smears out. It's partly in the past, it's partly in the present, it's partly in the future. And in that state, it looks like a wave because you can't measure where everything is anymore. So now get a load of this. The DNA molecule is only slightly wider than a buckyball, which means the DNA molecule is also subject to quantum effects, in which the molecules within your DNA are phasing between being here in space-time and being in time-space, where they actually are stretched out through linear time. And they're sensitive to all the other energy fields around them. Now again, this is science. All we're doing is we're starting with Einstein's relativity. We're saying that as you move through space, you move through time. The faster you move through space, the faster you're traveling through time. In time-space, you can move not just into the future, but into the past as well, depending on what direction you're traveling. The Russians have identified the time field, which means that if you speed up the time field in a small area, time will run faster or slower in that area compared to everything else around it. And they've got lots of experiments with little wristwatches and stuff where they put them in the time field, and the time field makes it speed up or slow down. Now, pyramids are one of those things that will make those watches change speed. So a pyramid is an actual symbol of something that will cause change to occur. The pyramid is a symbol, but it's also a technology. It's also a machine. The symbol of the pyramid is that which is reaching up. It's something that's reaching for the heavens. It represents geometry, and there is geometry that makes this energy field of the time field I'm talking about function. It's all based on geometry, which is more complex than we're going to do in this presentation. But the time field is something which not only affects the passage of linear time, it also affects the health of your body. The more of this time field is flowing through your body, the healthier you're going to be. And paradoxically, the slower you're going to age. It's when the flow of the time field stops that you move out of eternity, that you move out of timelessness. It's when time stops flowing through you that you stop being an eternal being and you begin aging. Remember that scientific study that Deepak Chopra talked about in Ageless Body, Timeless Mind, where he gets a bunch of elderly people and he puts them in a room where it has the magazines of 40 years ago, it has the radio broadcasts, it has all the furniture, everything. What he found was that within a very short period of time, all these people had a remarkable turnaround where they started reverse aging. They actually started getting younger in a way that is molecularly, biologically provable. That's because the time field started flowing again. They started to have hope. The time field is that which gives you inspiration. If you want to know whether the time field is really flowing through you or not, you can tell because you will be in a state of uplifting gratitude and positive emotion. It is a scientific fact that the more that your mind goes into that state of resonance, of positive attitude, of fearlessness, of courage, you are causing time to flow through you faster, which means you have the power of eternity at your fingertips, which means you are at the forefront of the human evolutionary process. But this is not something that only relies upon your ingenuity and your dedication to a spiritual path. It is something that is being done for you by forces that are very mysterious because they are much greater than what you would normally think of as your conscious mind. You want to talk about the monolith in 2001 and how mysterious that was. That's not even the beginning of what we're talking about now. This big stone slab shows up, and all of a sudden all those cavemen learn how to use tools, and they can kill each other now, and they become the dominant species. And then at the point where the movie goes into the present, the monolith shows up on the moon, and Commander David Bowman at the end of the movie ends up becoming the new Adam, the new species of humanity after he goes through a Stargate. There's a lot of things that are known on the inside, and this stuff is not a secret. It's not a secret even though it has been kept secret. It has been attempted to be kept secret. It is not secret. All of the information we need is already here so that we can definitively understand that what's happening to the earth is a naturally occurring process. It is a sacred process motivated by forces of intelligence that would stagger the imagination. Back in the old days, you had a LAN system in which a computer was just a monitor and a typewriter. And you plugged it up to one central computer, and everybody's little dummy terminal, as it was called, was plugged into that one computer. On some level, each of us is the dummy terminal. We appear to be separate. We appear to be an identity that has an ego, that has a body, and we identify with the body. On some grander level, the body is merely a projection. It's like if you have a prism, and light is going through the prism, and as it rotates, you see these rainbows around the room. And each one of you is one of those rainbows. But would you say that those rainbows are each an individual generator of light? No. The light is generated by whatever is striking the prism. Those individual pieces of rainbow light are just the reflections of the one light that strikes the prism. If you want to really get into the esoteric science and understand what the ancient prophecies are telling us and why it's so relevant to what you're going to hear in this talk, try to vibe into the fact that the entire manifest universe, that matter and energy itself, is but reflections of this one singular light. That all visibility in the universe, everything we can measure, is a reflection into what we think is space and what we think is time. But when you start really understanding what time is, you realize you can go whatever direction you want, forwards, backwards, and sideways. And when you understand space, you realize that space doesn't pose any obstacle if you can pop through to time-space, back and forth from space-time to time-space. You can wormhole yourself or portal yourself, or whatever they want to call it, from any point in the universe to any other instantaneously. That's how it's done, because there is no actual location. Location is an illusion which is based on the rules of the road so that we have one intelligent super being that has wanted to experience multiplicity, that has wanted to experience separation so that it can reunify. In terms of how that functions in our galaxy, the galaxy is generating intelligent waves, which you're going to see the proof for in this presentation. And those waves upgrade the speed of this time field, or of what I call the source field. The speed of vibration of the source field is going up. If that speed represents how well you think, it's no different than you upgrading your computer and going from this ridiculously bad processor where you could barely even get any of your websites to load because it takes so long, and getting this really fast machine where now every page... Sorry about that. She almost jumped right out of her seat. I'll try to do that a little more delicately next time. Is that better? Okay. So, you broke me out of my trance now. Now I got to actually talk from the ego. How's it going, man? What the hell was I talking about? All right, let's see. We got to get the download back in play here. When we understand that this energy field is part of the galaxy, that the galaxy is a conscious being, the galaxy has energy that must be conscious. The energy that's in the entire universe must be conscious, and it must create life. Life is the divine imprimatur of all energy in the universe. All energy in the universe is built to create life. The physicists call this the Goldilocks principle, and they don't even have a clue as to how far the Goldilocks principle goes. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right. That's what they're talking about in terms of planets like ours, and how we have just the right amount of oxygen, just the right amount of water, just the right temperature. All these things are perfect. It's not an accident. Life on Earth is not some random little thing that only happens once in the history of the cosmos. Life on Earth is actually programmed to be here because we have to get rid of this idea. Well, we don't have to. I try not to use must and have to because those are very strong words. It would be beneficial to learn that there are forces out there much greater than the human intellect, much greater than the ego, much greater than the body. That there is forms of consciousness that could be an entire planet, that could be the sun, that could be the galaxy, which is really nothing more than a bunch of suns and planets in a big cluster. Well, we can prove that that's going on. So I'm going to start showing you some things here. The first criticism that anyone will have when you go into a 2012 discussion is they say, well, nothing's really that different. Everything's the same. We're pretty much doing the same thing now that we've always been doing. We get a little bit of progress here, a little bit of progress there, but nothing's going on right now. There's nothing unique or special about this time in history, and I beg to differ. This is a picture that you're going to see from the fires in Australia. You may not think of this, but koalas in the wild are actually quite dangerous. They'll claw you and scratch you, and they'll attack viciously to protect their home. But when it comes to these earth changes, this koala was more than willing to accept nourishment and love from a human, a wild koala. He's not scratching, he's not attacking. Now, this is the thing that people don't seem to understand. The universe is built to deliver the experiences that are already happening. The universe is not a cosmic comforter that hands you a lollipop when you don't love yourself and says, oh, I'm going to just send you all these people who are going to love you because you don't love yourself, and oh, I'm sorry you don't love yourself. Let me send you loving people. Is that how it works? What happens to you when you don't love yourself? What does the universe send to you? Does it send you a lollipop? Hey, look at that. That person doesn't love themselves. That person doesn't have a high opinion of themselves. I have a puppet now. I can manipulate that puppet. I can make that person do what I want because they are too afraid to go against me. They want to be polite. They have such a low self-esteem that if I tell them something that I want them to do, they're not going to want to upset me. So what the universe actually does is that if you have a weakness, if you have something you don't like, the universe says, oh, you don't like that? Well, here, have some more. Have some more. Until you get to the point that you simply accept experience and accept yourself. And when you learn to accept yourself, you will not be manipulated because you will decide that it's better to preserve your sovereignty than to be manipulated by someone else. You will decide that your state of mind being positive and uplifting is a better state for you to be in than the state you're going to have to go through temporarily to really piss somebody off when they're trying to manipulate you. Because they're going to take it personally, they're going to get angry, they're going to throw hate at you. That's what they do. That's what these types of people do. Now, we're not judging those people except insofar as that they are in confusion. They are living in a confusion that makes them think that the body is who they are. And they are trying to do things to comfort the body at your expense. This is the meme that's going on in the entire planet. That's what a lot of these talks that you've been hearing are about. We are talking about how much corruption and greed and rottenness has festered into the society and the structure of civilization on Earth, in the governments, in the militaries, in the corporations, in the school system, in the financial system, throughout everything. There is this corruption, this molding that has occurred. Let's get out of the idea that this is a victim consciousness that we're going through. That's what I'd recommend. You do what you want. But this is how I've decided to live. I'm not going to be anybody's victim. I'm not going to be anybody's slave. I claim, and I ask you with me right now by your applause, to claim your freedom and your sovereignty in this moment. Let's have a hand for that. All right. If you can claim your freedom of positivity, your freedom from fear, that is the most threatening thing to the negative controllers in this world. Because this is a frequency war. The one thing they don't want you to have is a positive, loving feeling in your day-to-day life. If they can keep you thinking that you're at the brink of destruction, that nuclear missiles are ready to incinerate the earth, that the economy is ready to collapse, that your government is ready to herd you off into concentration camps, and they've whipped up this fever to such an extent that people are bringing armed weapons to gatherings where the president is, because now Fox News wants you to think that Obama is the same old thing. I don't care if that's what you believe or not. But any time that Fox News is telling me something is true, I'm inclined to think it's not true based on their past history. Can I get an amen on that? It's a little bit disturbing when you start watching Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck and they're saying exactly the same things as all your favorite conspiracy websites. That's not good. That's not what we want. Because Fox is a corporate entity. It is a propaganda organ. It's also important to understand that many of the conspiracy sites have been seeded with propaganda. These are not independent bloggers that are actually trying to raise money and do an honest living. These are people that are funded by the Pentagon and the NSA. We've had extensive discussions with people about this who are insiders. So what's happening now is that because as a planet we have not loved ourselves, we have been stuck in this self-loathing, in this self-condemnation, and this fear of our own potential, this fear of our power. The universe has not sent us these majestic, loving, cosmic leaders who are all-knowing and all-powerful and can be trusted with the warmth and the innocence of a young child. They have sent us vicious killers who will do nothing but spare no expense to rape us, to steal every cent of our money. That's what happens in the universe, but it only happens until you don't need the lesson. If you learn to love yourself, do those negative people still get fixated into your life to such an extent that that's all you ever have? No. If you're one of these people who's been through self-loathing and moved into positive self-concept and self-esteem, if you have learned the power of no, as opposed to the power of now, and you can say no to somebody trying to manipulate you, then all of a sudden, you're not shackled to this feeling of obligation to someone who is being grotesquely unfair. You now have the wherewithal to speak your mind, to say your piece, to get your needs met, even if it means that it's going to upset someone. Because if someone has denied you the respect and the sovereignty and the love that you deserve as a perfect child of God, then you deserve to protect yourself from that person. You deserve to love yourself enough that you claim your right to exist. The universe sees that you've learned your lesson. And now the people that would have taken away your freedom and would have taken away your sovereignty can no longer do so, because even one flicker of light in the darkness is enough to show you the layout of the room. And we've had enough of that now, that there is a massive awakening going on. Project Camelot, and I was a part of this, happened to get involved in the center of this swine flu vaccination conspiracy. Because we had a situation unfold on stage in Zurich between myself and another witness who was arguing in favor of vaccinations and is actually a former operative for Majestic, which is the UFO working group arm of the neoconservative Republican New World Order faction of the world elite. So he's telling you should get the vaccine. Now granted, there is a great deal of science to suggest that vaccines do confer immunity. We are not disagreeing with that. But we are also considering the testimony of people like Jane Burgermeister, a well-known mainstream journalist who happened to go alternative when she started to find out that Baxter Pharmaceuticals, as you all know, had released a vaccine, and thank God these people in Norway injected it into some rats before they gave it to people, and the rats all got bird flu and died. Oops. How did that happen? I don't know how that happened. Did we do that? No, of course not. So look, you also have people in the government who are not high enough to know that this swine flu thing might have been manufactured, and they have a very legitimate concern about the swine flu. It's being kept secret, but they do believe that this could mutate like it did in 1918, that you get sick the first time, it's not that bad, but you get sick the second time and everybody's dying. Millions of people are dying. That's the theory. Let's bear in mind that in 1918, the world was nowhere near as civilized as it is now. Sanitation was much less. And in order for you to have any of these flus, regardless of what they are, get your health down in a negative way, your immune system has to be depleted. What's the biggest thing in this new science I'm going to teach you about that depletes your immune system? Negative thoughts. So if they can keep you in fear, which means that you hate the government, you hate the president, you hate what's happening to your kids in school, you hate the economy, you hate the Federal Reserve, if you're angry and you're fearful all the time, and then they stick out a little virus, guess what happens to you? You get the virus. A virus is a frequency-based entity. As you see in my 2012 Enigma video, polio, rubella, all these various viruses have geometric structure, which is wave-particle structure. Geometry can flip around into the time field and become a wave. Kuznetsov, which you're going to see in this presentation, proved that the wave structure of a disease is enough to infect healthy tissue in a hermetically sealed container. You can take the wave structure of a disease, zap it through a hermetically sealed container, and have those cells inside the container catch the disease. A disease is a disease of the mind, which has as its medium of transference the consciousness field. That's how you get sick. It's by going out of integrity. The nutritional component is secondary to that. When you're in an area where everybody is depressed because their living conditions are very difficult, they're going to get sick a lot more because they're so negative. So I ask you this. If you can respect yourself enough to no longer let these people into your life on a personal level, is there a 100th monkey effect that happens to the planet? Of course. Of course. And that's what's happening right now. What I said on this panel last night, what I said on the radio show that I just did with Project Camelot on Thursday, what I'm preparing to say on my website, is that we are now at a point where we have graduated. I was told this a year ago. I was actually starting to be told this 2 years ago. It's now happened. We have graduated from the need to have the New World Order running the show. It's over. It's going to be over within less than a year. I'm not trying to be psychic. I'm talking in facts. I'm talking about the simple fact that you cannot lie to people who know the truth. What does a lie require to exist? It requires an absence of information. It requires you not knowing that it's a lie. Because if you're being lied to and you know that it's a lie, then it's not a lie. It becomes an obvious, ridiculous gaffe that this person is making. It becomes a situation that can be remedied because you can start laughing when that person tells you a lie. Because you know the truth. We are watching the derivative system, the Ponzi scheme and international bankers being ripped apart because the other countries are tired of playing the game. They now have more economic power than the old European white men that run the New World Order and the Illuminati. They no longer have the leverage to be able to do what they're doing. And what I propose to you on an even more intrinsic level is that this is all something that appears to be happening as a result of natural progressions of events. But on another level, it is an energetic phenomenon which is being programmed to occur by a movement into a higher energetic frequency. That frequency is making us more present with ourselves. The best thing you can do for the planet, the best thing you can do to save the children, to avoid the swine flu, to protect yourself and your finances, and to make a better world for future generations, is to stay in that state of positive, uplifting peace and gratitude. Can I get an amen on that? Thank you. And I don't profess that I'm the guy you go to for the answers. You can send me your emails. I'm happy to read them. I read all my emails. But this is something that each of us are doing. I've only identified an effect that's happening to everyone. If you want to go religious for a minute, the second coming of Christ, or the messianic return, is something that's happening to everyone. I was talking to Jordan over dinner with Bill and Carrie the other night, and he was telling me that if you really go back into the original Old Testament documentation, that the messianic figure is not one person. It represents this change into a whole new way of being. And so now he's got me convinced that I got to go looking for that data myself. He has reason to believe it's true, and I'm sure he's right, but I need to find my own facts. I don't wait for somebody else to come and teach me something. If I hear something that I like, I go look and I find out for myself. I was told from my own guidance, which is dreams and visions and prophetic information, that there was going to be a great change happening to the Earth and the solar system. I didn't just nod my head like a subservient slave to some higher power and say, yes, you're right, oh lovely master, I will do what you say. I said, no, I can't believe that. I can't believe that the whole world is going to change on an energetic level that will make what we're in now seem like the most miserable depression by comparison. That the life that we have now will become 100 times more harmonious, in which things like instantaneous telepathy, levitation, telekinesis, healing, and flying are so effortless that it's as easy to do as raising and lowering the diaphragm to make your lungs breathe. It requires no extra effort. That seems to be what's going on. There's all these people that we have in Earth's history from a variety of cultures, including Jesus. And if you don't want to believe in Jesus really existing, there's plenty of other cultures you can go to look for so-called ascended masters. They're out there. Guys that have these abilities, guys that do these amazing things. All that represents is somebody who is a little bit farther ahead than you are. Not too much. We know that the ETs that are visiting us are almost entirely human. The widest divergence from a human look that you're ever going to get is the so-called gray. The majority of humans, and we're getting more and more whistleblowers coming forward and telling us the same thing. The ETs are our family. They look like us. They have similar types of voices that we do, although they may not use them anymore, because telepathy works much better and much faster. This is like a dial-up modem. It sucks. Okay? If I could telepathically speak to you, sorry. How's that? If I could telepathically speak to you and just give you the download, you just get the whole thing, and I can walk off, thank you very much, good night. And I'm done. It's already happening, isn't it? I'm giving you holographic plates. What do we know about a holographic plate? You cut it up into little pieces, you shine lasers into each one of those pieces, and what happens? Do you see one side of the hologram? You see the whole hologram, just maybe a little bit dimmer. So what I'm doing is I'm giving you all these little pieces which seem to be very interdisciplinary. I'm talking about diet, I'm talking about health, I'm talking about politics, I'm talking about science. But I'm talking about the same thing. I'm talking about you. What is your identity? What is your identity? Is it your body? No. Is it this room around you right now? That's part of it. Your body is part of it. The people sitting next to you in this auditorium, or if you're watching this on the internet, the computer screen that you're looking at, that's part of you. The chair that's touching your bottom is part of you. It's your identity. When you walk on the ground and the earth is also walking against you, not just you walking against the ground. When you go outside and you see the blue skies and you see the clouds and you see the birds and you see the trees and you hear the wind blowing through the trees, that's you. That's who you are. Energetically, we can prove that. Energetically, we can prove that all the cells in your body change every 7 years. Who you are right now, this body that you have, even if you have this big nasty wart on your face or something, that wart has been completely redone over 7 years of time. Okay, fine. What does that mean? That means that the energy that made you change every 7 years flowed through you, but it didn't get stuck there. It kept on going. Is it not true that the air that you're breathing right now as I talk to you has potentially been shared by every person in human history? That's pretty nasty if you're a germophobic person, isn't it? Every person in the world's history has breathed the air that you're breathing. It's going round and round and round and round and round. It may be getting cleaned, but all the energy is there, and you can trace it back, and that could be scientifically proven easily. So what about you? Who are you? Who are you really? If the energy field that makes your consciousness is interpenetrated with other people's consciousness, and we can prove that, then who are you? Are you just this ego? Are you just this part of yourself that feels like you're lacking something? Because the body needs things to survive. The body needs sanitation. If you don't shower it for a while, it's going to start smelling pretty nasty. If you don't go to the bathroom, you're going to get sick and you'll eventually die. If you don't eat something, you're going to starve to death. If you don't drink something, you're going to dehydrate to death. The body is fragile. It can be cut. It can be having broken bones. You can have hair loss, skin problems. Everything can go wrong with the body. And therefore, when the body feels pain, you feel pain, and it seems like your identity is now in jeopardy. So because the body is so identified with the identity, we assume that our identity is the body. But we now have the scientific proof that that's not true. So your identity ultimately is the earth, the Gaia hypothesis, James Lovelock. Your identity ultimately is the sun, that which created all the particles and molecules that make you who you are now. Your identity is the galaxy. Your identity is the universe. The energy that makes the universal mind is you. It's just in a slower, holographically fragmented form, like that prism I said is rotating, and all these little rainbows are there. That's all it is. That's all you are. But that's everything you need to be, because that proves that you are the light, you are the love, you are the one infinite creator. That's all you ever have been, it's all you ever will be. And that's more than enough. Because what that means is that you have limitless potential. There is nothing special about me. The only thing that's different is that I'm very dedicated to doing what I'm doing, and I'm getting in touch with that part of myself that has access to the higher consciousness, and it makes me more and more of an embodiment of who I am. the more that you get in touch with the higher self, with your true cosmic identity, the more that you become one of the living master geniuses on this planet. If you had any idea of the scope of what you could be, if you truly access your potential, it would floor you. Because every single one of us has the potential to be a messianic figure, to be the savior of the world. We all have that potential, and we're all doing it to varying degrees as we start awakening. Well, thank you. Look, I could yak about this all day, but we got a lot of slides to do. So let's do some slides. The galaxy is pumping out these waves of energy which are now changing the solar system, and we're going to talk about that in very concrete terms. You're going to see all the proof for that. You're also going to see the proof that the fossil record has been undergoing... I'm not getting any... Oh, okay. Never mind. The fossil record is undergoing 26 million year cycles as well as 62 million year cycles, as you see in this graph here. What's causing that to happen? All life on Earth spontaneously changing in even intervals of time. Oh, it's got to be some big rock out there that's spinning around. 62 million years is not some big rock. That's like a third of the entire orbit of the galaxy, basically. It's about a fourth. Because the galaxy is about 240 million year orbit. 62 is about, roughly speaking, it's a quarter. Might be exactly a quarter. That might be the point. What did the ancients know, and why must we remember now? What do pyramids really do? Pyramids are harnessing the source field. We're going to get into that in a minute. We know, and we can prove now, that Atlantean civilization is nothing new. These pyramids around the world are not something that was built in conventional history. It was built before then. Off the western tip of Cuba, as you see in this map here, at this Guanahacabibias, I can't even pronounce that, the Guanahacabibias Peninsula, right off the tip of that, on the western tip of Cuba, you go a mile down. It's not quite a mile, but it's a long ways down under the surface of the ocean. And down there you find a submerged city, as this link says on BBC News. This is the only officially released side-scan sonar photograph of what was actually seen down there. Does that look like random pieces of sand on the seafloor? No. This is what it actually looks like if you reconstruct it in a computer. That's a computer graphic rendering of what you just saw right here. Is everybody with me? That's not something that just showed up as a result of random geological processes. That's a human-built structure. This area could not have been above the ground and above sea level prior to 11,000 years ago. Paulina Zalitsky is here in a cave in Cuba, which used to be the Atlantean highlands, looking at inscriptions on the cave wall. They're precisely the same as inscriptions that they saw being painted on the walls of these submerged cities that they sent submersible submarine probes into. What you're seeing here is a diagram of the energy fields in the solar system, which are, of course, concentric rings emanating out from the center of the sun. They also saw these cross formations painted on inscriptions in these submerged cities. Now, here is the only other photograph that she's ever released. This is a still frame from a much longer film where she's flying a submersible through this city. What do you see in the window of her monitor? Would you like to see it more up close? That's not just a little piece of sand on the bottom of the ocean. That's a pyramid. Would you like to see a pyramid in Egypt that it looks very similar to? Here we go. This is called the Bent Pyramid of Dashur on the right. It's almost identical to what you see on the left. And that is submerged off the western tip of Cuba. It's down there right now. What are we doing by not going and looking at it? Why did they sell this story to National Geographic and it just so happened to never make it out in 2003? National Geographic did a 360-degree contract. They bought all the rights. It was supposed to be the biggest thing ever to come out in 2003, and guess what happened? Nothing. Well, what we have now is evidence that somebody out there who's responsible for building this seal into the dollar knew that these pyramids harness some sort of energy field. Because what you're seeing is clearly an energetic, non-physical structure going down onto the top of the pyramid here. This grants the next question. I talked about the time field. I talked about the Russians. Is there a technology in which you can build something that will take this natural energy that makes physical matter, that's flowing through everything, and harness that energy in a given direction? The answer is yes. You're going to have some fun now. You're going to get to look at some things that are already well known to exist, and I'm going to let you just think about them. The first is menhirs, which are standing stones. I want you to bear in mind that the height of a human being is only a little bit taller than where the top of the shadow is in this photograph. These are enormous, enormous stones. Do you think that maybe these enormously tall stones were built for a reason? Do you think that maybe these ancient peoples were putting them there because they got something out of it? Is it merely a religious symbol? Or was it put there because it had a technological usefulness? Do they put these headstones over your grave because it's just decorative? Or are they hoping that the headstone is going to have some sort of energetic effect that will keep your body preserved and usher you on into the afterlife? Can these stones actually create ripples of energy that will rise our frequency of consciousness, that will make us feel better, that will make us healthier, that will make everything around us more harmonious? If you think about the possibility that these stones could be put into position and change the way that your mind works, then you're thinking in the right direction. They're enormous, and it would be a lot of work to do that just for some religious symbolism. It would be much more apropos to believe that people would go to all this trouble if they could use it for something. Next thing we're going to look at is dolmens. These are stone cellars. What if you were able to build a little stone cellar, a little stone structure, get inside of it and have it harness energy so that while you're sitting in there, you meditate and it raises your vibration. It raises the consciousness frequency of your mind while you're inside. And all you have to do is sit under this absolutely colossal stone that if it fell would crush you flat instantaneously. Very precariously. This is Kilclooney in Ireland. Look at that thing. Look at how that gigantic stone that weighs more than 2 18-wheelers, at least, if not much more, if that little guy were to just fall off of the tips of the other stones, he would crush you flat. And yet there he is, and with all the earthquakes and with all the earth changes that have gone on, it's still balanced precariously right up there. And here's another one, balanced precariously. Why would they go to so much trouble? Do you really think a bunch of guys are just going to do this because it's cool? Do you really think they'd go to the trouble of getting themselves crushed and trying to precariously balance these very, very massive stones just because it's a fun thing to do? I don't think so. In this case, you see that actually part of the stone is broken off and fallen onto the ground, but the point is the same. The point is, look at what's going on there. You go underneath, you meditate, and you get charged up. Now, this is an example of a more advanced structure where a wall is built around you. And once you go inside that wall, you now have a much, much higher energetic charge. And you got a little breathing hole. This is another one from the side. Wouldn't you like to know? No, actually, I did this in a rush, and I don't know where all these locations are, but it's easy to find online. Just look for dolmens. And you'll go to Google Pictures, Google Images, Google dolmen, the word dolmen, D-O-L-M-E-N, you'll start finding these things. Barrows is the next thing. Barrows are mounds. The idea here is that you actually drill a hole into the ground underneath the mound. There is a round chamber inside the mound. This is well known. You go in there and you have a little party and you meditate. It's enough now that you can bring in a group of people. It does the same thing as a dolmen, except you're burrowing into the earth now. So here's some barrows. And this one, of course, you see how well structured it is, Silbury Hill being the biggest one. Now here's one of the entrances, which of course The English government has been kind enough to put iron bars in front of it so you can't go in there. They don't want you to be able to use this technology anymore. And they're probably worried about finding condoms and stuff inside, frankly. But that's not what it's built for necessarily. Maybe it was. Some of these barrows are longer, and you also have the mound builders in the U.S. You have all these other things like Serpent Mound in Ohio that you can go to and see this in the U.S. I'm only doing the English ones right now. Henges is the one that everybody's so familiar with and everybody loves, because now you get standing stones like the single ones you were seeing before, except now there's certain areas where the energetics are so high that long rows of stones are being put together because it's going to be even more powerful. The sheep really like being near these stones. In fact, animal life really can feel this more than we can. These were not put there by accident. And again, in this case, you have a combination of a barrow and a henge. You have the henge at the front here, and if you go through that path down the middle, you go into the barrow, and you go inside and you meditate. Maybe the henge in the front helps focus the energy that's flowing through the center of the barrow. Here's another henge out there just hanging out in the middle of the English countryside, and some of them are in France, some of them are in Germany. They're in Ireland too. They're all over the place. Here's another one. Of course, here's another one. Here's another example. One of the most impressive, which unfortunately has been lost to the ravages of time to a large degree, is Avebury. Now, what you're going to see here, if you look closely, is that all of these different stones, all of these different little dots that you see as you go along here represent individual stones. This looks like a giant serpent. Here's the head, and here's what it's eaten in its stomach. If you look up at the top in the middle there's two little rings of stones inside. That represents the meal, and then here's the tail down at the bottom. Down here is one of the barrows. This is Silbury Hill, the best barrow of all, the most famous one and the most well-structured one. Look at the geometry. Look at how it's a perfect equilateral triangle between the head of the snake, the tail of the snake, Silbury in the middle, and then here's the area up here. Now, what this was for, this was a gigantic technology. This is a machine. It's a machine that's built based on, if you look around it, the contours of the mountains, the contours of the land, so that a bunch of people get inside this area right here and they have a big party and they all meditate and chant and run around and do fun stuff. And they're changing consciousness for themselves and for the planet. That's what this stuff was built for. It's a consciousness technology. Of course, Stonehenge being the greatest example of all, these sarsen stones, as they're called, are gigantic in size and very beautiful to look at. What you may not realize is that at one time there was a whole ring of them like this. That's what it used to look like, and all the stones that have fallen have been identified in the soil, because the more they fall down over time, the more that it rains each year, they fall further and further into the ground, but they've all been found. So this is known to be true. I'm not making this up. What we know is that Stonehenge was used to identify solstices and when the moon and the sun were traveling and what would happen, because during certain planetary alignments, certain times of the year, these zones on the Earth became much more energetically active. Are these ancient structures connected? The answer is yes, through the science of ley lines. This was done by Sir Alfred Watkins, and we're going to talk a little bit about him. He found in the 1920s that ancient holy sites lined up in straight lines, which he called leys. Sites from extremely different ages, millennia apart, were all aligned with one another. This includes the Neolithic Age, which is Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and the Christian era. Now, he would use this camera to basically be able to look across long distances and see if things were in a straight line. Now, what you see here is the summary of a massive amount of research that he did. What you see here is every single one of these words is a different ancient sacred site. Nobody ever comes out in the open and says, oh, by the way, all these sacred sites are built in a straight line. It took a guy like Alfred Watkins to analyze this and discover it for himself. But guess what a lot of these things are? They're cathedrals. Do you think that maybe the Knight Templars knew that there was something going on? Do you think that maybe they knew to build on that line and not to build off the line? Do you think that maybe if you build a church which acts as a funnel for this consciousness energy, that if you build that domed roof for the church out of stone over that line, that it's going to harness more of this energy field from the universe, and that in so doing, it's going to become a resonator so that when you go to church, you're going to be experiencing a revelation, a higher consciousness. Do you think that maybe the stained glass window and the Gregorian chant music are creating harmonics that help you harmonize with the field? Absolutely. So here's some people from his Stonehenge club, the Straight Track Club as it was called, the ley line hunters. Here's a barrow that had trees growing around it. Here's a similar ring of trees without a barrow. This is a natural earth effect caused by these energy fields because they do have circular formations. Well, it is a hyperdimensional effect. These are harnessing hyperdimensional energy because the hyperdimensional energy is what makes the matter that is building the stones. Let me say that again. The matter that makes these stones, the stone itself, the actual hard stuff, is built from hyperdimensional energy, energy from the time field that's flowing into our space-time. That's what, according to Dr. Dewey Larson, all matter is built from, is this hyperdimensional exchange between three-dimensional time and three-dimensional space. That's all it is. So, of course, you're going to get time anomalies, but it's also the energy that builds you. It builds your DNA, it builds your body, so when you get more of it flowing through you, you're going to have more health and vitality. And because it's the energy of your consciousness, because it is consciousness, it's also going to give you a more advanced intellect. So the way that we can actually prove that this global grid, these energy lines, has a hyperdimensional effect that can completely pull you out of our three space of length, width, and height, the three-dimensional world, is with the research of Ivan Sanderson. He investigated a massive number of different disappearances of ships and airplanes. What he did is he took everything from every single ancient everything from the dawn of aviation, going all the way back to the first airplanes and even before that for the marine records. He looked for every case of disappearance since planes were discovered. And he found that the majority of what he was finding all clustered around 12 points on the Earth's surface. That's completely unprecedented. That's not mainstream information. It was done in the 1960s. This guy should have been treated with as much respect as somebody like Edison or Einstein or Alexander Graham Bell or the Wright brothers, because this is a huge discovery. 12 key points around the world in which planes and ships are spontaneously disappearing. He wasn't looking, he didn't have anything in mind when he started doing this. All he did is he looked up each one and he gave it a push pin, push pin, push pin. And where were all the push pins at the end? They were in 12 places. Even stranger is that the 12 places are not just haphazardly scattered around the earth, they're all equally distant from each other. They're harmonically balanced with one another. They're all the same distance apart when you look to the ones that are adjacent to each other. If you connect the dots, you get a sacred geometry, which happens to be the same geometry that's in the polio virus, the same geometry that's in many other viruses at the quantum level, including HIV. But it's not just a negative, toxic thing like viruses. It's a very positive thing that's the fundamental building block of physical matter and biology and life. It's an icosahedron. Now, here we go. This is the Bermuda Triangle. Obviously, you know about this one. Believe me when I tell you that there are many, many airplane disappearances that cannot be explained, where they've never found oil slick or flotsam on the surface of the water. All they find is a missing plane. It's on the radar 1 minute, it's gone the next. There's no oil slick, there's no wreckage, nothing. And they don't find anything on the surface, on the bottom of the ocean floor either. It's gone. What happened is it's passing through a portal. It's passing through a time gate, a gate into another frequency of reality, a parallel universe in which time is three-dimensional. Here are the 12 points that he discovered with his push pins. Take a close look. You see the Bermuda Triangle off the coast of Florida. You see another one near Brazil in South America. You see another one here on the land in Africa, another one down here by Sri Lanka. You see one that's the Himalayan mountains, all that crazy stuff like the Master and Teachings of the Far East, Tibet, all that stuff up there. You got some that are out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean here, which is a real lonely area to get stuck in. The Easter Island is down here. And then you got one here, which is the Devil's Triangle, That's officially been declared a disaster area by the Japanese government. They do not allow you to fly or sail through this area. You also have 2 bracketing Australia, and that's very important. Australia, if you notice, is the only continent that is completely pinned between actually 4. Because what he doesn't show you on this map is that there's one down here on the South Pole, one up here on the North Pole. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. Australia is perfectly in the geometric center of 4 of the most important nodes. So there's a lot of crazy stuff, and the exact geometric center of the nodes happens to be right where Pine Gap is, which is one of the biggest bases where all this stuff is being done. You connect the dots together, you get your icosahedron, which, as you see here on the left, is a geometry. This is what it looks like superimposed over the Earth's surface on the right. Now, this is where it gets even more interesting. These 3 Russian scientists, and everybody laughs when I say their name, Goncharov, Morozov, and Makarov. Well, see, you're not laughing because I told you it's not cool to laugh, so like now you don't want to laugh. What they did is they went through and they looked at every single line that was discovered by Sir Alfred Watkins. Remember the guy that did the ley lines? We were just talking about that, how all these churches and all these Neolithic sites and Iron Age sites and Bronze Age sites, they're all in straight lines. Well, these Russian dudes took every single one of those things that Alfred Watkins discovered, and they took every single other structure they could find around the world, the Great Pyramid, Stonehenge, Easter Island, temples and pagodas in Asia, China, Japan. They looked at every single weird monolithic, which means big stone structure they could find anywhere in the world. And they found that every single one of them fit onto a single grid, which was very simple to construct. All you had to do is start with the same 12 points that Ivan Sanderson found where these matter time-space warps would happen. Take those 12 points, connect the dots, just like I did. That's the icosahedron. But then, the icosahedron has a curious property. It's a geometry that, because it is perfect, can be inverted. It's a mathematical thing you can do where you flip the geometry inside out, literally. That's what it would be. If you add the structure, like made out of wires, you could actually flip it inside out and rebuild it, but build it backwards. Build the geometric inverse of it. All you got to do is inverse the icosahedron and make it so that it fits together with the original icosahedron, and you get this grid. Here it is. So I want to point out to you again, because this is a little bit confusing if you don't know what you're looking at, that all of your original points are still there. Here's, the Bermuda Triangle. Here's the one on the southern tip. Here's the 2 that I was talking about around Australia, the one that's up there. Here's the one at the South Pole. So they're all still there. But now you've added in the geometric opposite. If you simply build this geometry, you now have a diagram that shows you where every single ancient site in the entire world has been constructed on. Over 4,000. They couldn't find a single one that was anything impressive that wasn't built on this grid. Why do you think that is? If you have a wire that's going to go to something that powers an electrical appliance, are you going to put the wire under your armpit and expect that it's going to work? No. You plug it into the wall. If you build a pyramid and you don't build it on this grid, do you think that it's going to work? Not anywhere near as good. You got to build it where the energy is. That's why with these cold fusion guys, they're looking at the cold fusion reactions. They build devices that actually work in some places, but then they bring it somewhere else that doesn't work anymore. It's on 60 Minutes. They've talked about this. Oh, we don't understand. It must not work. It must, and then the scientists say, well, it's the whole technology is wrong. No. It's because if you're on the grid, it's going to work. It's very simple. Let's put all of the cold fusion devices on the grid where they work, and then we'll wire them up and we're done. Just build it where it needs to go. It's very simple. You have energy in one place and it's not somewhere else. It happens to be the energy of the time field. Well, look at what else you got here. You got the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. This is the volcanic ridge that defines what's pushing apart the 2 continents. And if you start looking at the next grid, which is the Becker-Hagen's grid, they've basically taken the same thing. The black dots are Ivan Sanderson's 12 vortexes. Again, all the matter, time-space warping going on there. You have all the points of the geometric inverse of the icosahedron, but what they do is they actually take 2 icosahedrons and they put one out of phase with the other. Rather than inverting it, they just take a second icosahedron and make it a little bit out of phase. We have a phone ringing. That's a sign. Do you guys need a break? No? See, we're having mutiny, Carrie. What should we do? The troops don't know what to do.
Actually, we need to do sort of a short meditation to clear the room.
Okay.
Right. Meditate.
All right, we'll do a short meditation and mentally clear the room. That's why we got the cell phone ringing and distracting me. I would ask that you just take a couple minutes. Take a nice deep breath now. If you need to use the restroom, please go, because this is going to be enough time that you can actually have a break if you need one. I won't be offended, I promise. Some of you are hardcore and you're just going to sit through this. That's cool. Either way is fine. I won't judge you. We'll just laugh about you once you're out of the room. I'll make jokes about you. And let's go into the infinite peace of this moment. You may want to close your eyes. You may want to spend a little time relaxing. And just give yourself over to the loving presence of the cosmos. Let yourself feel the articulations of intelligent infinity, which speak to you in the moments between moments. Give yourself an opportunity to relax into the full awareness of who you are. Take comfort in the beauty of you. Take pleasure in the divine energy that makes you who you are. As you tune in deeper and deeper to yourself, you become a pyramid. You become a standing stone. You become a lens of light for cosmic energy to flow through. It doesn't require you to spend any money. It doesn't require you to have any advanced degree or university education. It doesn't require you to drink anything, eat anything, take any pill, smoke anything. All it requires is peace. All it requires is tranquility. All it requires is the knowingness that you are more than your physical body. That you are a divine light, a glorious gift from the cosmos. That any and all negativity that has hung around you can be cleansed away, much like the traditional housewife would sweep out the house with a broom. With all the doors open, the dust comes flying out. The floors become clean. It becomes easier and easier to walk around undisturbed, to appreciate the bounty of your own space, the bounty of your own sovereign identity. For when you learn to love yourself, you can have those boundaries. You can sweep out the dust in your own life, as we're now doing on the planet. The very air that passes through your lungs is the living conduit of universal light that carries you like a magic carpet to lands unseen that float in the sky. Lands that are beyond physicality. You have every opportunity to reach out and find those lands. You have the glory of being yourself in this moment. You have an opportunity to expand your awareness so that that mind that thinks through the hardware of the brain is not just the mind of your personal ego, but the universal mind that is much more than just your own personal self. It is the self with a capital S. Let's experience that self. Because as you do, the energy flows through you, and it is an energy that creates an impenetrable shield that no negativity can penetrate. It is a living vessel of light, the chalice of the Holy Grail that allows you to be perfectly sovereign in mind and in body and in spirit. By living through that consciousness, you live in the presence of your everlasting awareness, your eternal identity, which is never going to be terminated by the loss of a body. It is much more than that. Your mind is information, and the information has identity, and the identity is the universe. So now I will start to bring you back into the conscious mind. Most of our friends have gone to the bathroom now, so we're all back in the room. I'd like you to see again this grid. Open your eyes and let's meditate on that grid for a minute. You're seeing the underlying geometric framework of the mind of the earth. And this is how it's been built. And this is what structures the continents the way they are. Look at how the coast of Rio de Janeiro here is pushed in by this node. Look at how the whole shape of South America is defined by the lines that surround it. There's many, many examples of this. This is the stretching pattern that the earth makes as it expands. You can see island chains that are part of circles. Here's another island chain that's part of a larger circle. Just connect those nodes together. Look at the 2 points in the middle. It looks like cell mitosis. That's not an accident. Oh, really? Well, that's interesting. I was just informed that there was a UFO sighting right outside the building at the time that the cell phone went off. Believe it or not, but that's pretty cool. Well, thank you guys for showing up. Actually, there's a whole bunch of them on the ceiling here. Cool. All right. Hopefully you're a little bit less hypnotized now, and we'll get back into enough of a thinking mind that you can follow me. Can we prove the ancient sites harnessed usable energy? The Russian pyramids research holds the key. The Russians, after the fall of the Iron Curtain, had all of their military-industrial complex, all of their infrastructure, and they had the laboratories available to be able to build pyramids and study what they would do, and that's what they did. Here are actual photographs of the Russian pyramids. Check this out. These are enormous. These are little bitty, those little dots down there, those are people. Okay? So look at that. Look at the size of that thing. Here's somebody posing in front of it. Here's what it looks like on the inside. It's made of PVC plastic pipes with a fiberglass facing. Sometimes they were built near oil fields, as you can see here. Sometimes they were built out in the countryside. That's a smaller one. Here he is posing in front of it. Now, some very, very strange things happened when they did this. If they built one over an oil well, it would become 25% more productive, and the oil that came out was 25% purer. It would make poisonous chemicals no longer poisonous to the body. They would become safe enough that you could dump it on your skin or drink it and you were fine. I do not recommend that you try this. Okay? But that's what they said they found. Diseases would be cured, even cancer. It's an energetic phenomenon. They had white underbred mice, and they injected them with a toxin that would normally destroy them. If 60% of the mice died from the toxin in the laboratory, when they put those same mice under the pyramid, guess how many of them died? Only 6%. So 94% of all the mice injected with a lethal toxin that were put in the pyramids that they built here that you just saw didn't die. Up to 400% increase in the productivity of agricultural seeds. You throw these seeds into the pyramid, guess what happens? You grow the same plants, but now they're 400% larger and they got better fruit. Everything is better about them. So you can grow super seeds. Strong electrical activity. You could put a little voltage pile, a little battery on top of the pyramid, and it generates current. It's fascinating. Significant earthquake reduction. This is where you start seeing how the Earth's energy fields are related to severe weather and severe earth changes. If you build these pyramids, then guess what happens with earthquakes? You don't get a big giant quake anymore. You get a bunch of little ones that don't cause any damage. You also see an enormous column of energy hundreds of miles wide around the pyramid. This is not electromagnetic energy. This is the energy that the Russians can measure, which they call torsion fields or the time field. That energy column, that hundreds of miles wide energy column from one pyramid is enough to cause big storm fronts coming through to kind of go around it, like there's a big circle there. They just whoop, go right around it. It's crazy. It's been proven. What they also did is they took giant slabs of granite that they were going to use to build these jail cells in Russia. That's a lot better than an American jail cell, isn't it? Take these granite slabs, and they built 5,000 prisoners' cells from these granite slabs, and then they watched these guys. They didn't do anything else to their environment. They didn't do anything else to their diet or their medication. Now, one could argue, well, maybe the prisoners were really happy that they had a nice granite, cell that they could hang out in. But that's not enough to explain what happened, because they had a profound improvement in their attitude and behavior, including substantial increase in addiction recovery from alcoholism and drug abuse. So all these prisoners that are living in these jail cells that were charged up with granite from the pyramid, that's all that it was, all their behavior starts improving because they're living inside a harmonic resonating chamber. The granite crystals have actually changed their structure. If you think about how you magnetize an iron nail, you take a piece of iron, right, like a nail, and you start stroking it with a magnet. And the more that you do that, eventually it becomes magnetized and you can pick things up with it. Well, we know that the reason why that works is that all the molecules in the iron are now going north to south in their electrical charge in the same direction. That's what starts to cause it to happen. So we know that you can do it to metal. You don't see anything different about the nail, but we know that it becomes magnetic because the atoms are changing inside. The pyramid does the same thing to crystal. You put the granite crystals inside, the crystals change. I don't have it in the slideshow here, but another thing they did was just to take a bunch of granite rocks and just throw them all over the floor and leave them there. And what they found was that if they came back after a few months, the granite is usually a reddish color. They came back after a few months and there were rings in the rocks that they just thrown on the ground, and the rings were whitish. The granite changed color. It actually changed from a reddish color to a whitish color in a ring. That's how much these fields change crystals and their actual structure. This proves when you get to the point of earthquakes and how earthquakes can be changed and reduced by the pyramids, and how human behavior is improved by the pyramids. You just put the prisoners in those granite cells and they get much better. This proves that our consciousness is tethered to the Earth's consciousness. You harness the Earth's consciousness with the pyramid, which acts like a funnel for this energy. The energy that builds each molecule of the pyramid is an energy that is in you. So the energy that makes you who you are can be harnessed in the pyramid, just by the fact that it's shaped that way, because there's an energy that flows into every atom in that pyramid. And if the pyramid is a perfect sphere, then it's going to all flow in the same way. But if it's a funnel shape, it's going to flow in with a directional current. That's all it is. It's a funnel. It's very, very simple. This proves a connection between our consciousness and earthquakes, a connection between our consciousness and severe weather, a strong likelihood that our consciousness is directly affecting the Earth. That's a very important point. Of course, the greatest pyramid of all is, not surprisingly, called the Great Pyramid. And we know that when you go inside the Great Pyramid, they have this sarcophagus that you lie in. And the ancient technique was that it would cause you to have this meeting with your shadow, a projection of your shadow. You go into an out-of-body consciousness, and you go into this other realm, which is time-space, as we would now call it. You encounter your shadow projection, and if you can heal yourself, which means if you embrace your shadow, the best thing you can do if you're in a nightmare and something is chasing you and you're terrified of it, don't keep running. Stop running, turn around, say, who are you and what do you want? Don't be afraid at all. Get rid of the fear. And what you'll find is that if you're not afraid of it, you're going to start seeing it change. And the more that it changes, the more you'll see that it's yourself. And when you realize that it's yourself, you embrace it. And there's this huge flash of white light, and you have this amazing experience, and you wake up in tears. Many people have reported this. That's the integration process the pyramid is talking about. Except in the pyramid, it's so powerful that you literally come out with ascended abilities. You literally can do things that we would consider miracles, such as telekinesis, levitation, instant healing, telepathy, etc. Well, it's not everybody's experience. Napoleon went into the king's chamber. What do you think happens to a guy like that when he spends a night in the sarcophagus? This is what he wrote after it happened. He was absolutely terrified. He had a horrible night. He never wanted to go anywhere near it again. So, I ask you this. When the apple fell in front of Sir Isaac Newton, was that the first time that gravity was working? No, it was the first time that someone recognized that gravity was working. Is this presentation and the science that we've been putting together recently the first time that anybody's recognized that this is working on Earth? No, right? Because of what? Pyramids, global grid, everybody built it on the grid. Why did they build it on the grid? Because they saw the apple fall, they knew there was an energy field responsible for that. Except in this case, it's not an apple falling, it's a consciousness rising. So have we seen the apple fall in modern times? And the answer is no. We're trying to explain everything on electromagnetic energy, and we don't understand that there's an energy beneath electromagnetic energy that's even more important. This really becomes a scientific validation of the idea of a higher power, that there is some divine intelligence that's more than just you and me in separated brain pans, and that's nothing else that's there. That's the old way of thinking. The new way of thinking is that consciousness is a field, and that field must exist through the whole universe because consciousness is the basic behavior of matter. So matter is not just in this galaxy, it's all over the place. It all seems to have similar, if not the same, rules. Therefore, consciousness is very likely to be everywhere. Now we're going to go back into 2012 now. We've built a lot of background for this. So let's go into 815 AD, which is actually the first documented record of crop circles coming down. Crop circles are not new, and they have messages in them in the form of pictures written into crops, and those pictures will show us that there is somebody out there who wants us to figure out a puzzle, wants us to solve a mystery. 815 AD, if you look at these lavish, sunny, lovely quarters, it's actually very Gothic and gloomy. This is the Archbishop of Lyon issuing an edict called Against the Foolish Opinion of the Masses About Hail and Thunder. People believed in cloud ships from a place they called Magonia. What do you think a cloud ship is? You think that's a cloud? No. Think about it. Cloud ship is not a cloud. Cloud ship is something that they see flying in the air, and they say, well, clouds fly in the air. It's a cloud ship. And they believed that these cloud ships were flattening crops into circles because the cloud ship says, well, I'm going to protect you from bad weather, but here's what you need to do for me. If I'm going to protect you, then you need to let me flatten these circles out in your crops. It's kind of a weird deal to make with cloud ships, but what the hell? That's what they thought was going on. Agobard issued a prohibition against any locals taking seeds out of the crop circles for pagan fertility rituals. So what that means is that people were getting a bliss hit from the energized crops. They would build little huts out of them and stuff, and they'd want to have a pagan fertility ritual in them. Which, of course, means what were they doing inside the little grass hut? I wonder. So, that was purely subconscious. I had no idea what I'm doing there. Or I could go. No, there's no subtext. I'm not giving you any subtext. Obviously, what's going on is that the farmers are getting really angry because they're losing their crops. So the farmers start saying, hey, you guys, stop doing this. And they say, no, man, check it out. The energy is amazing. The farmers are like, oh, my God. So back then, the church was basically the government. So they go to basically the equivalent of the government, and they say, hey, look, okay, we got to stop these people. So Agobard, being also the governor, basically, has to issue this prohibition. Well, guess what it was all built around? It was built around crop circles, perfect circles in the crop 1,200 years ago. Are crop circles new? No. All right, Elf Ringewort is a fairy ring, a ring of daisies caused by elves dancing, a legend that dates to the 12th century. I found this on Wikipedia, of all places. This is the people that are partying and dancing and making the thing fall down in the angelic realm. That's what they believed caused these rings from 1880. This is a strange story. Look at this. This is the equivalent of headline news in 1678. This is what happened. Somebody comes over to chop down a farmer's crop. He's called a mower. The mower wanted a lot of money. The farmer wasn't willing to pay that much. So the farmer gets all pissed off and says, I'd rather have the devil chop down these crops than you, man. That night, the farmer's in bed and the whole field lights up like it's on fire. The perfect circle appeared in the crops the next morning, as it says in this thing you just saw, so neatly mowed that no mortal man could have done it. Well, now we believe that it's a bunch of drunk guys walking around, hey, isn't this great? We're making a crop circle. That's not the way it worked back then. They were smart enough to know that no person could have done this. So this is the illustration. So, of course, if no person could have done it, it's got to be the devil. It's obvious. Everybody knows that. So it's the devil. There he is doing his little job. He's going around doing his thing. Okay, now we have Dr. Robert Plot, who's at the beginning of the Renaissance, a very educated and enlightened scientist, who was smart enough to look at the hip bone of a megalosaurus and see something entirely different. It's the world's first homoerotic paleontologist because he saw the scrotum of a giant here. What a boner that would be. All right, so what he did is he started to look at these crop circles forming, and he actually drew pictures of them in the 1600s. These are his actual photographs. These are not just circles, quote unquote. That's a spiral. That looks like somebody's ear with a sound wave going into it. And here is a perfect square inside a perfect circle. So Dr. Robert Plot's educated hypothesis was, oh, well, there's a piece of square wind, you say, and the square wind is making a square hole in the crops. That's actually not much better than what modern scientists are trying to say for crop circles now. So nothing has changed in 400 years, unfortunately. He also found that the soil underneath the crop circles was much drier than ordinary, which smelled like moldy bread, but then what does the guy do? He puts it in his mouth and he tastes it. That's a dedicated scientist. Oh my God, it's horrible. Except he found that it didn't taste bad. So what do we know this is? This is all the water being zapped out of the soil. It's totally dried out. That's a cosmic thing that happened. That's a extraterrestrial technology. Dr. Gil Levengood documented the same thing in the 1990s, exactly the same thing. So it's still working the same way. In the late 1940s, somebody witnessed a whirlwind touching down and forming a circle in the corn. He believed it was wind. In only 3 or 4 seconds, you have this perfect sharp-edged circle that was very large, 3 or 4 meters wide, happen. It's about 30 feet. Not quite 30 feet, but it's big. It's like 15, 20 feet. August 1972 in Warminster, he hears a noise. Something pushes down the wheat, but check out the last line. What does it say? The air was what? Completely still. There's nothing going on. No wind that could have explained what happened here. In front of my eyes, I could see a great imprint taking shape. The wheat was forced down in a clockwise direction. He hears a high-pitched humming noise, and the circle opens up like an oriental fan unfolding. Guess what, guys? That's not weather, that's not wind, that's not a bunch of drunk guys walking around stamping down the crops. This guy witnessed it. We can put people in prison based on eyewitness testimony. That's what he saw. Well, let's stop talking about him and start looking at him, because that's where it gets more fun. Here you have the original type of circles you'd see, and then you start to get these patterns of 4, and there's a little one down here that was originally called grape shot. These kinds of patterns start showing up all the time, 2 circles connected by a line with this little arch, or sometimes it was there, sometimes it wasn't, which in pagan symbolism is the pregnant goddess. This is the pregnant belly, here's the head, and here's the arms. But of course, the circle makers couldn't be content by showing us such primitive diagrams, so they came back a couple years ago and they did this. Oh, sorry. Here we have the goddess, of course, in a geometric form, but it's very clearly obvious that's what we're seeing again. This is the rebirth of the earth coming into being. You see 3 goddess formations in this from 1990. This was Alton Barnes' 1990. It made it onto the cover of the Led Zeppelin CD box set, actually. That's a much nicer version of the photograph, too, before everybody tamped it down like you see in this one. All this footsteps messing it up over here. That's not there. Well, this one is one of the greatest ones in terms of the impact that it had. Richard Hoagland was really the one who made this the most popular. It shows, basically, we think it shows first dimension, second dimension, third dimension, and then fourth in the middle, the geometry. These lines are perfectly equated with a tetrahedron inside a sphere. This is a situation where a bunch of people were sitting around studying crop circles, and they said, oh, wow, wouldn't it be great if they did a Mandelbrot set, this fractal? The very next day, it shows up in the crop. So somebody's listening. Truck driver drives by this part of the field. He doesn't see anything there. 15 minutes later, the farmer is going out there, and he sees this thing in his crops. It wasn't there 15 minutes earlier. It showed up in 15 minutes in 1996. Surveyors were asked how long it would take to do this if you plotted it all out on the ground, and they said minimum 2 to 3 days, and that would be if you really worked all day and all night. It's a beautiful formation, 15 minutes. This one's even more outrageous in 1996, because now you get like 3 of them rather than just 1, And they form this very interesting cat's cradle of equilateral triangles when you look at it from the top down. Now here's another fractal. And of course the skeptics start saying, well, this isn't really a Koch snowflake. A Koch snowflake is just taking the triangle, then making the inverse, and then iterating it more and more, and then you get this thing that looks like a snowflake. Circle maker says, oh, you don't think it's a Koch snowflake? Well, here, you're really stupid, so we're going to give you another one. We'll put a snowflake in it this time just so you can figure it out. People still don't get it. Now that is obviously caused by an army of hedgehogs running round and round and round. This perfectly rational scientific explanation. A bunch of drunk gentlemen coming back from the pub one night with long boards on their feet and a funny cap with a string, and they're walking round and round, tamping down the crop circle, having the greatest time of their lives. Making absolutely geometrically precise formations in record time over one night. I don't think that's what happened. And this is the kind of stuff that they were doing 1,200 years ago, causing Agabard to prohibit the pagans from taking these things out for fertility rituals, all the crops from these circles. This is what they're doing now. It's the same technology. That's my favorite one yet. I've never seen one that makes me happier than that one. Look at the precision. There isn't a single part of this that's geometrically out of alignment. Nobody on the ground could have done that in the one night that it showed up in. It's just too complex. Well, there's a message in there. Genetic changes in evolution. Look at this. This is chromosomes breaking from 1991. When chromosomes break, that means the cell is about to divide. That's what this is showing you. So there's some sort of evolution happening. You look in 1996, you see a very clear illustration of DNA. Do you see the double helix there? Can everybody see that? I also want you to pay attention to this shape right here. I want you to look at that shape, memorize that little part. We're going to get back to that in a minute. This is the same kind of sine wave you see here, but it's in a geometric pattern. That's 99. Now look at what happens less than a month later. Exactly the same formation, but now it's got even more strands. So it's saying something is going to be happening to DNA. That's a suggestion. That's one suggestion. There are others. Here's one that again is showing you DNA, but it's in a perfect circle, a perfect ring. You can obviously see the double helix and the little ladders connecting the two sides together. It's beautiful. But this is the one that really gets me off. You have the galaxy in the center, the Milky Way galaxy, and then you have these waves of DNA, and you have this pattern being flagged. Look at that. There's your double helix. Everybody see that? And this is being pumped out by the galaxy, but look at this. In the Hebrew mystical tradition, that's a special shape called a yod, which refers to divine light coming down into manifestation on the earth. And I don't have it in this particular slideshow, but if you look at the tower card in the tarot, there's all these yods around the tower that's being struck by lightning. That represents divine manifestation. So this is actually a further message saying that this DNA energy is a divine manifestation. The definitive 2012 formation is right here. This showed up last year. And what it does, or it might have even been, it was this year, wasn't it? Man, it hasn't been that long. Or no, I think it was last year. I'm sorry. I've been using this ever since it showed up. Now there's some interesting things going on here. We look at the sun, okay? Now look at the diameter of the sun. We know that all of these objects here represent the planets, and it's a specific planetary alignment. Well, it's actually December 21st. This man made a mistake, but it's close enough with 2 days off. You can't really make much of a difference in terms of any of these positions. But around December 21st, 2012, Red Colley is the guy that did this. Look at this. You see all the positions of the planets are the same as what's in the crop formation. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, they're all in the same positions. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Pluto is not in the same position. Now it could be that it would have broken the geometric harmony because if it would have had to have been right about here. Now I've had a little tip from, let's say, a source, and this is a human source. This is somebody here, not any extraterrestrial. And he told me to pay attention to this. He says that also is part of the message. Even though it looks like it's just an irregularity in the ground, why was it built so it's right there? Is there something that we might be encountering in the future that is right there in the solar system? That's what we're being told. That's all I can say on that. but I want you to think about that. Well, look at what happens here. The sun, after a couple days, is now widened to the orbit of Venus. Does this not suggest that something is going to happen to the solar system on guess what day? December 21st, 2012. They gave you the planetary alignment, and they give you what's going to happen. They show you the sun. They show you the sun changing in a very, 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 very dramatic way. This doesn't mean it's going to kill us. The other things show that it's an energetic change. And it would also appear that this indicates some sort of energetic influx, and that these indicate all the ET groups that are surrounding us at this time. These are code ciphers for different planetary civilizations that are coming in. So this gets us into interplanetary climate change. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this stuff because there's so much of this data. But this is the smoking gun. When anybody tells you, oh, there's nothing that's changed, and it's all the same old stuff, it's not true. It's not true. First of all, let's look at the activity of the sun. It's the highest it's ever been in 8,000 years. This is taken from Antarctic and Arctic ice core samples, which have been correlated with tree rings and all the other stuff they use. 11,000 years ago, the fall of Atlantis, look at how high it is. It's almost that high now. It's the highest it's been in 8,000 years. The sun is now giving off storms that used to take 2 or more hours to get here, showers of protons. Last year, well, that's 2005, I'm sorry. In 2005, one of them got here in 15 minutes. That means the energy in the solar system is conducting those particles faster, which means it's charging up. The energy is vibrating faster, the particles move faster. It's very simple. NASA is now warning of a space Katrina in guess what year? 2012. They're saying that the sun could have a massive radiation blast, just like it's possible that the crop circle was showing us here. Even Army studies, mainstream government studies, are saying that the sun could be driving all the climate change on the Earth. Obviously, we're seeing it's at an all-time 8,000-year high. The solar wind is slowing down. That's still been happening. It's very weak. And at the same time, the sun's bubble, the actual magnetic field of the sun, has gotten 25% smaller. The most likely explanation for that is that the outside is pushing in on it. There's something pushing in on it and making it smaller. That's what would most likely be causing this, which again suggests we're moving into an area in the galaxy where there is a higher energetic charge. We have been in touch with insider witnesses thanks to Project Camelot, and one of the things we've heard is that we do have this fleet of ships out there outside the solar system, and they have looked at this wave coming in. They know there's a wave, they know it's coming in, and they're studying it, and they see that it's coming into the solar system. So they are paying attention. But they're not going to tell us until the last minute, which is, just enough time for everybody to panic. Well, they run away. But that's not what this is about. This is about genetic change, and it's about evolution. And it's not a doom and gloom thing. Even though I'm showing you stuff that you could think about in a fearful way, all of these messages, all of these crop formations that they've built up 1,200 years of credibility to show you genetic evolution. They're not showing you doom and gloom. What would be the point? If it's an intelligent cosmos, why would it create life on this beautiful planet just to belch it off in a big solar flare? That's not what this is about. The galactic dust, there's more dust that came in between 2000 and 2001, 300% more than all the 1990s combined. That's another major study that was found. If you look at Mercury, Mercury's magnetosphere in 2008 was much more powerful than it was seen in the 70s with Mariner 10. And here's the actual mainstream publication where that came through. And now just recently, they go back a year later and they see even more stuff. They found magnetic tornadoes, magnetic twisters, and they said one of the biggest surprises was how strongly the dynamics of the planet's magnetic field solar wind interaction had changed from the first Mercury flyby in January 2008. So what this is telling you is that Mercury has changed dramatically in its magnetic field in 1 year. That's it. Mercury is going nuts. That's the first planet in the solar system. That's not the only planet that's doing this. Look at Venus. 2,500% increase in the green glow in less than 20 years, looking like this right here. That's totally amazing. On Mars, you have the appearance of clouds. You see the clouds here, that they weren't there. Mars didn't used to have clouds or ozone. They've only appeared in the last 30 years or so. It's another major change. Mainstream media has reported on global warming on Mars. Guess what? Nobody's driving SUVs on Mars. At least if they are, there's probably a lot less of them than there are on Earth, and they probably run on free energy, based on what our whistleblowers are telling us. But that's melting, something is melting the ice caps on Mars. Jupiter has this plasma torus that you couldn't see before 1974, and yet now it looks like this. As time goes on, the density of this torus, as you see here, is getting 200% thicker. This is the natural saucering movement that it makes as the moon Io is going around its orbit. Well, they get so bored, they're stronger than expected. 200% increase in the whole density of this thing in basically 25 years, 15 years. Very, very short time. 15 years, every single particle inside this thing gets 50% denser. They say, well, it exceeded expectations. Okay. No biggie. Jupiter's white ovals disappeared in 3 years. There's 3 of them up here, and then you see there's 2, and now there's 1. Dr. Philip Marcus believed this would cause an 18-degree global warming on Jupiter in only a decade. Well, guess what? It's a decade later, and now Jupiter is having raging heat thunderstorms that they're calling global upheaval, just what he predicted would happen. These are infrared heat signatures that were not there before, much higher intensity. Now, you camera guys, can you shoot either one of these? Because I'm just realizing that over here we have light on that slide, and over here we don't have any light. And so that's a better one for me to be using my pointer on. So I think I'm going to switch over to this one now. Oh. Somebody throw stones at the idiot here. All right, never mind. Let's keep going. The storms appeared during a dramatic planet-wide disturbance that's ongoing on Jupiter. It's yet to be explained, but it's changed the color of the stripes. Storms are probably tied in with a global upheaval. Io's ionosphere, the moon that we were showing you before, 1,000% higher. That's all the charged particles, which are coming from the sun. It's unexpected. This is ridiculous. This is our entire backyard. I've showed you every planet. Mercury's having magnetic tornadoes. Mercury is having so much change that in 1 year it's gone nuts. Venus is having a 2,500% increase in its green glow. Mars is having global warming and ozone in the atmosphere and clouds that weren't there before. Now you're going out to Jupiter, you're seeing this plasma torus show up, all the particles are getting bigger, there's more and more of them. You look at the moon Io, it's the same thing, ionosphere is 1,000% higher. The surface has gotten 200% hotter, 3 times hotter than Mercury. How did that happen? Surprised? Well, yeah, we can't explain it. Okay. Europa is much brighter than expected. This is what they thought it would look like based on what it used to look like, and this is what they actually got. Look at all that light. Ganymede, same thing, 200% brighter. 1,000% increase in its density of its atmosphere. Saturn's plasma torus, 1,000% denser, same thing, short period of time, basically 12 years. Aurora are being seen in the polar regions of Saturn. Here's another new thing, that's heat that wasn't there before. Massive X-rays were seen for the first time near the equator of Saturn in 2004. Uranus was featureless as a cue ball in 1986, but look at what happens to it by 99. Dr. Eric Karkoschka finally has some of the childlike enthusiasm we really should see. These are really big, big changes, man. Check it out, it's incredible. It's been hit by huge storms, dude. So he's finally got it right. Seasonal brightness changes not well understood. Moving on. That's the official NASA report. Uranus 2004 is even brighter. Now I'm going to superimpose the original over what you got here. Look at how much this is changing. All that stuff is new. That's all this bright stuff that wasn't there before. Well, guess what happens when you go out to Neptune? Exactly the same thing. This is what it looked like in 1989. This is what it looks like in 1996. 0 degrees, quarter rotation, half rotation, three-quarter rotation. Dum, 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 dum. Now we go up to 1998, you see that there's more brightness coming in, but look at what happens in 2002. It's gone 40% brighter in near-infrared, which is just above visible light. If you could see this spectrum, this is what it would look like. To the naked eye, it's not changing that much, but this is only barely above what our eyes can see as visible light. So now I'm going to show you what it looks like as it goes from 89 to 2002. Watch. Watch the bottom. Look at how much it's changing. Do you think this is just a random thing that's being caused by the tilt of the equator of the planet relative to the sun? No. This is a planet-wide, solar system-wide effect. Global warming on Pluto, 300% increase in its atmospheric pressure from 89 to 2002. It's moving away from the sun, but the surface of the planet is getting hotter as it moves away from the sun, which is causing the atmosphere to charge up. So this shows us that Earth changes are not unique to the Earth. They're happening all over the place. Now, Bill and Carrie, I see you guys over there. How much time do we have? What are we on here?
Well, we're 6 o'clock, so 10 more minutes.
Okay. Well, there's all sorts of different places we can stop and start in this presentation. And I wanted to get you guys, sort of like when I do these longer weekends at my conferences, like I'm having one in London next month. When I do these longer weekends, we can actually drill into this data a lot more, and there's a lot more data than I actually have had time to go into here, but that's why I make these presentations modular. But what you're seeing here is, if you look through, I'm going to summarize some of this stuff and zip a little faster so we can get to the punchline. You're seeing continuous rises in earth change activity. Let me do it from this side. Earthquakes, volcanic activities going up, sea levels going up, temperatures going up. Thank you for letting me know that it's updated my database. That's very rude of you. Perito, gosh. Tornadoes are going up. Disasters, natural disasters, economic loss on Earth, all this stuff. The entire Pacific Ocean seafloor is heating up, which is obviously what happens when the sun warms up water on the surface of the ocean. And then those warm water particles are sinking down to the bottom, where they warm up the bottom of the ocean. That's what the scientists are actually saying is going on. So, of course, the next time you want to boil water to boil some eggs, you just get a hairdryer and it'll work just fine, I promise. That's how they've explained this, because they can't tell you that the Earth is heating up from the inside. That's all it is. The planets are heating up from the inside. Why are they heating up from the inside? Galactic energy fields. What are the galactic energy fields going to do? Change your DNA. So let's get to that. I'm going to have to go through some stuff here. All right. We're going to do, okay, we'll get to this because this is good. Bacteria. If you look in the Antarctic ice, in the interior of a volcano, even inside a nuclear reactor, you find little critters. They're everywhere. They even survive in space. They've been recovered after being frozen for 10 million years. It's as if some sort of life force takes that existing body that was there, and you thaw it out, and it says, oh, okay, that's a body. Whoosh, I'm going to make it alive. So there's something going on here. Something more than we usually think of life as being. Some bacteria thrive on infrared light. They photosynthesize in near darkness, and they've been found miles below the surface of the ocean floor. It is ridiculous to think that all these critters grew from living bacteria, from other living bacteria. It becomes much more plausible that those little bacteria that grew inside the nuclear reactor didn't come from other bacteria that grow inside nuclear reactors, that are just sort of floating around saying, let me find a nuclear reactor. Oh, look, there's one. No. Those nuclear reactors are hermetically sealed for a reason, but they're not sealed from the source field. They're not sealed from this energy that goes in there and says, oh, here's a place where I can make life. This is like what happens in a star. Let me go ahead and jump in there and start creating life. So they call this a problem, but it's actually a proof. It's a proof that life is everywhere in the universe. Dr. Chandra Wickrama Singh, say that 3 times fast, and try to spell it while you're pronouncing it. I've had to practice that, I might add. Has proven that the organic material in comets is biological. It has critters in it. There's billions of comets in the solar system alone, and he believes that all life on Earth may have come here from a comet. And this is Dr. Francis Crick, the founder of DNA. And what he shows us is that it's way too complex to have evolved by random chance. It's as if the entire Encyclopedia Britannica fell out of the sky, one word at a time, and it all just happened to arrange, like those monkeys on typewriters. That's the kind of logical idiocy that it is involved to try to say that DNA is a Darwinian mutation from random accidents. And this is the guy that co-founded DNA with Dr. Francis Crick. Okay? Or he is Dr. What am I saying? There's Watson and Crick. here's his biggest discovery. Now, this is the same guy that discovered DNA. Why isn't this as popular as his other discovery? He looks at all the dust in a line of sight between where we are on Earth and the center of the galaxy, and all of it looks just like bacteria in its heat signature and its light signature. Exactly the same. It is bacteria. So this is Howard Hughes' worst nightmare. Space is filled with germs. Don't go to space if you're a germaphobe. Even the mainstream media is saying space that creates human life found in another solar system. Well, we know that space has these source field differences. There's a source field energy in space that you don't see here on Earth. It's called the overview effect or space euphoria. Astronauts go out there, they get this massive energetic high from being in space. It's been reported by many of them. The Chinese have taken seeds and flown them into space. And it's important that you do this in a space capsule that doesn't have PVC plastic windows and doesn't have aluminum in the chassis. If you do that, which is what the NASA probes are like, it doesn't work. It won't work. If you have any PVC plastic at any point over the windows, they're not going to do this. And if you have aluminum in the body of the thing, it's not going to work. The Chinese built one that didn't do it that way. And what happens is, they send these seeds out into space, and remember what I said about the Great Pyramid, or the pyramids built by the Russians? They tossed the seeds in, and what happened to the seeds? 400% more productive seeds, 400% bigger plants. Would you like to see the kind of crops that the Chinese were growing when they just flew the seeds into space? Let's go for it. Bang! There's your pumpkin. That's the only thing they've done is grow it hydroponically, and regular hydroponic pumpkins don't do this. This is a space pumpkin. That's the only thing they did is fly it in space. It's the mystery of the great pumpkin from space. Every Halloween, he comes in a UFO. Now this, isn't that amazing? That is actually called a bitter gow. It is not a whale penis. Contrary to your belief. It is actually a melon. Now, you know those little hot peppers, right? The little hot, oh, Jesus. Or maybe you really like it. Maybe you're a sadist and, oh, this is fucking right, man. I shouldn't have sworn. I'm sorry. Edit that part of the video. Oh, this is wonderful. Okay. Let's look at some hot peppers. Let's look at some hot peppers. That's a lot bigger than they're supposed to be. That's amazing stuff. So is this the source of all life? Is all life found in an energy wave? Well, check this out. This is Dr. James Strick, Sparks of Life. Major scientific conspiracy of the 19th century. Many of these guys were arguing in favor of Darwin random mutation, and others argued for spontaneous generation, life from non-living things. They didn't know whether it was one or the other. They found numerous experimental examples of spontaneous generation. Pasteur had cases where life originated from non-living things, so it's not as easily dismissed as we would like to believe. Louis Pasteur is why you have pasteurized milk. All these guys created a conspiracy where they buried data where you have sterilized test tubes where nothing could grow in there and critters grew in there anyway. And they threw it all away because they wanted to believe Darwin was right. Because survival of the fittest is an Illuminati philosophy that says if I'm the best killer, then I'm the most evolved on the planet. And that's how they felt about themselves. So they enforced it into the scientific structure of the world. History's been completely rewritten in favor of that model. So now this is a big mouthful, and here's the guy's name, which is also a big mouthful, Professor Pacheco. You can find this on orgone.org. It's very simple. What he did is he takes beach sand, puts it inside a test tube, and then, or before that, he takes beach sand and he heats it up to white-hot luminescence. It's literally white-hot. Then he takes that sterilized beach sand and he throws it into a sterilized test tube with sterilized distilled water in a vacuum, so there's no way anything could have gotten in there. 5 days later, this scum has grown on top of the test tube. He scrapes it off and looks at it under a microscope. Would you like to see some of the little things that he saw in there? Let's go for it. This is the first one. It looks like a little brain. Here's something that looks like it might be part of perhaps a sea vegetable, like one of the leaves broke off when he put it under the microscope. Let's look up close on that little guy and tell me if you think this is biological. Where did his DNA come from? All that was sand. There was nothing else in there. He sterilized the sand, sterilized the water, sterilized the air, and yet this little critter grew in there. And that's just one part of a bigger plant. There's other pictures where you see the plant. Here's another one that looks like a red blood cell. Here's one that looks like a white blood cell or a leukocyte. But here comes, drum roll please, the bomb diggity. This little guy probably has 20 to 30,000 genes, which is about the same as you. It's similar to little roundworms and stuff. This guy has a very complex DNA structure because he has a defense system, he has a head, he has a mouth, he probably excretes out here somewhere, which is too much information. But there he is. Where did his DNA come from? His DNA is in space. It's everywhere. The DNA wave says, oh, this is the silica basis of sand. I need to build little sea creatures in this stuff. Just like when it's inside the nuclear reactor, it says, oh, this is radioactive. I need to build radioactive bacteria in here. Life is being created everywhere it goes. But it even goes beyond that. Now, this really blew me away. Check this out. National Geographic, February 15th, 2009, found identical species at the North and South poles, but only at the poles. That's the only place you find them. They tried to explain it as maybe they're ships that go from the South Pole to the North Pole. They analyzed every single ship in the world. None of them do this at all. So, they found 235 different species that are identical at both poles. They were startled. They didn't know what the heck was going on. This includes whales, worms, and crustaceans. Very weird crustaceans, as you're about to see. Exactly where these species came from and how they ended up a world apart with comparatively warm oceans in between remains a mystery. So they don't know what the heck these guys are, how they got there, they don't have any idea. Would you like to see some of these creatures that emerge directly from the consciousness field? Let's go for it. They're very strange looking things. This is called Limasia helicina. It's this very strange, it looks kind of like a snail, but it's got these fans on it like a squid. It's a very weird looking thing. This is called Silone limasina, another very strange looking little creature. This one is Gaetanus bravispinus. This is a crustacean of some kind. And lastly, you have Mimonectes sphericus, and he's got a really nasty looking defense system up front, doesn't he? He's a little badass. But he's out there doing his thing, and guess what created him? The consciousness of the earth spontaneously generates these little guys at both poles. There is no conduit of seawater going from North to South Pole. He would have burned up on the way through the core. Think about it. The reason why he's there is because the field generates him, because he is supposed to be there because the earth makes him. The earth has made us. So, the solar system is creating evolution. DNA evolves by outside energy. I'm going to have to skip ahead through all this stuff, so just give me a second here. That's a good place to go, because we were running out of time. So we've already seen now that you have DNA that has been created out of the ether. Same species at both poles. You've seen the little guys that grow in the test tube from nothing more than distilled water and sterilized sand, and there's this little scum that grows on top, and you look at it under a microscope, and boom, here's these little critters. What about DNA changing from one form to another? What about transforming DNA from one form to another so that you have the given genetic material of one species and it transforms into something else? Well, Conchazin is the guy here. And there's a lot of different ways to pronounce his name. Most recently, I've seen it spelled Chang. C-H-I-A-N-G is his first name. So there's many different spellings of this guy's name, which makes it extremely difficult to find his work online, unfortunately. So what he does in this anatomically correct diagram is he's got your duck over here. You can see the feathers and the head. Oh, there he is. And over here you have a perfectly described chicken. Obviously, I'm being facetious. What you have here is these little funnels that are built into the side of a little pentagonal box, and he zaps this little duck with microwaves, and all the microwaves go through these copper pipes from one room to another. If you talk in here, you'll hear it in here. It's air that can pass through. He's zapping it with microwaves, which are not going to kill the duck. It just kind of zaps his energy field enough to make it resonate, make the DNA resonate. And over here you have a chicken that has eggs in its womb. So now I want you to look at the physiology of a duck. Notice the long beak, the webbed feet, the longer neck, the larger internal cavity of organs, whereas a chicken, by comparison, this is not what they looked like when they came out, by the way, that's just to fool you. I actually found this when I was looking for the picture of the chicken with the webbed feet, and then I found him with ducks, or her with ducks, and I'm like, wow, isn't that a synchronicity? So anyway, look, shorter beak, no webbing between the toes. This is what actually hatched. These are called duck hens. You see webbing between the toes. You see this strange-looking head. We can get a better look at it here. The eye's position is different. You get the duck-shaped head, the longer beak, the webbing between the toes. Now here's the stats. He zapped a total of 500 eggs, 480 of them hatched. 80% had a flat duck-shaped head like you just saw. 90% had the shift in the position of the eyes. 90%. And 25% had webbing appear between the toes. This is a Chinese scientist who did this. It's an amazing piece of research. You go from this, and you blend it with this, and you get duck hens that are half and half. It's an amazing phenomenon. So if you've ever wondered what the heck is the duck-billed platypus, maybe it just so happens that a bunch of ducks and a bunch of moles got together and did that which we cannot speak of in polite company. And God got so angry that he smited them with a lightning bolt, and then they had lots of little babies, and the babies are like, Daddy, Mommy, oh wow, what the hell am I? That could have been what happened. Or maybe God just has a weird sense of humor. Garyev is where we get to the final point that's going to help round out the whole talk. DNA transformation. You have frog eggs, okay? The frog eggs are laid, and they're all sitting there, and then you have a salamander's eggs, and you take a laser beam that's not going to burn them, it's not going to kill them, it just picks up the wave information from the salamander. You take those salamander eggs, you shine the wave through it, you redirect the wave into the frog eggs. Guess what happens to the frog's eggs? You get a complete metamorphosis. The genetic material of the frog's eggs becomes cannibalized by the wave of the salamander. Cannibalized is maybe a strong word to use, but it gobbles up all the genetic material that was going to make a frog and totally rewrites the code and transforms it into a salamander's body. And it happens in one generation. You have eggs that come out of a frog's body, and they turn into a completely different species. That doesn't take very long. It's instantaneous energetic change. And so what we're seeing is this is the engine of evolution. This is what the solar system is doing to us. The solar system's energy that's causing all the planets to charge up is the same as the energy of the laser that goes through the salamander and shines into the frog, transforms the frog eggs into salamander eggs, and they become healthy adult salamanders that can breed with each other. They don't get all these genetic problems when they get older. They don't have the complications associated with genetic cloning, of the genetic conundrum that you have with Dolly the sheep, where like the feet go bad as she gets older. So again, I want to have you look once more at the fossil record, this 26 million year cycle. Why do you think it's happening in such regular intervals of 26 million years? This is Rope and Sepkoski. Why do you think they found another cycle that's 62 million years long? What do these zones actually represent? Well, here's what we're going to talk about to cap off the whole talk for you. Galactic bioenergy fields may be responsible. We now know, thanks to Dr. William Tift, that even though most scientists associate redshift, which is just a microwave frequency, that's all it is microwave light. They associate redshift with distance. Tift has looked, and his colleagues and people that have followed after him, have looked at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of galaxies. And every single galaxy that they look at has a structure like this. Okay, what you're seeing here is this is high-intensity redshift or high-intensity microwaves, and then it goes lower and lower as you go out. So these frequency changes are very regular. This is within a regular galaxy now. And what's happening is, you can see another example of it here. These are redshift structures. You see the layers. What's happening, we know from Dr. Rosine Lallement, and here's the link down at the bottom, and you can verify this. She thinks it's only a coincidence, but what she sees is that the local interstellar medium, the clouds that are around our solar system, are moving directly away from the center of the galaxy. They are expanding away from the center of the galaxy. So what we're seeing now is that these guys, these clouds in the galaxy, are going to be expanding away from the center in regular intervals, just like Lallement discovered. This appears to have the energy from the galaxy that reprograms all DNA and all life on Earth. Now I ask you this, if you have these 62 million year cycles in the fossil record, if you have 26 million year cycles in the fossil record, if you have these striated, evenly different frequencies of microwave energy in the galaxy, if Dr. Rosine Lallement has proven that the clouds are flowing at us directly from the center of the galaxy, then don't you think maybe, just maybe, interplanetary climate change is being caused by galactic energy fields, which are squeezing in the heliosphere, making it 25% smaller, shooting in particles to the solar system, causing all of the planets to get charged up, hotter, brighter, more magnetic, and that energy actually has the DNA wave information to transform every living species on this planet into the next level, because guess what? This is a 62 million year cycle, and the last time it fired up was 65 million years ago. This is probably off because of the variations in the influx of solar radiation. We're at the end of the cycle right now. Now there's one thing that we're going to end with, and that's the final proof that's going to make this all come together for you. I can prove to you that human evolution is already doing what we expect it would do based on interplanetary climate change, based on the science I've showed you. I have the scientific proof that you are actually evolving genetically based on this science. Check this out. John Hawkes, University of Wisconsin anthropologist, studied evolution in human beings called positive selection. He found that in the last 5,000 years, your DNA is upgrading 100 times faster than ever in human history. In fact, the last 40,000 years have been a time of supercharged evolutionary change. We are more genetically different from people 5,000 years ago, that's 3000 BC, that's the time of things like the Sumerians, and that's the time of the Indian Hindu scriptures. We normally think of these people, the Old Testament is just a little bit after that. Ancient Egypt, people building pyramids, we don't think of them as much different than we are. But if you compare those people that are building pyramids in Egypt to the Neanderthals, right, with the big clunky brow, nothing like mine. My brow has nothing like that. I'm not a Neanderthal. You compare those people in Egypt with Neanderthals, like me, and they are more similar to Neanderthals than they are to us. You don't think about it because we look around and we say, oh yeah, these are people, everybody's the same, you know? But look, the genetic proof is already here. We've changed more in 5,000 years than ever in human history, and he's calling it supercharged. This is an actual mainstream media proof of that. And here's another one, showing that our evolutionary fast lane is becoming increasingly different at 100 times faster in the last 5,000 years. Now here's the last thing. Our average IQ has had to be increased by 3 points a decade. It's been studied over 20 different countries by Flynn, and it's continued for over a century. And it is happening the most, our IQ is rising the most in abstract non-verbal patterns, which means it doesn't have to do with us reading more magazines, newspapers, and surfing the internet. It's a symbolic intelligence. So this is the hardcore proof, scientifically measurable. The reason why the IQ is going up like that is because a score of 100 is supposed to be average. That's how it's weighed. So in order to keep 100 average, you have to bump it up by 3 points every 100 years, because everybody's getting so much smarter, you got to keep knocking down their IQ score. Because everybody now, its average is 100, that means that everybody's so much smarter, now your IQ is going to go down and down and down, which if you have low self-esteem could really hurt you. So just don't hang out much longer, just, you know. No, I'm not saying you should kill yourself, of course, unless you're really, really arrogant about your IQ. Anyway, this is where we're going. It amounts to a cultural renaissance. So the galaxy, and this is the final point. 20 years of study of ESP has proven, scientifically sound studies, he looked at all of these studies, Spottiswoode his name is, to see if people are psychic when it's high noon or a certain time of the day. He didn't find anything in the normal day, which is where the sun is relative to the center of the Earth, but when the Earth's position relative to the center of the galaxy was studied, he found that when you are aligned with the center of the galaxy, your ESP ability goes up by 400%. This is a mainstream scientific study. So think about this. We now have the proof, and this is what I'm going to end on. We now have the proof that galactic energy, as you see right here, he took 20 years worth of studies into ESP, 20 years. And he found that people got more psychic when the galactic energy field is hitting them. I've showed you layers of fields in the galaxy that are measurable on a superficial level by microwaves, just like near-infrared is showing up in the planets, same thing. I've showed you proof from Rosine Lallement that these galactic energy waves are in fact expanding away from the center of the galaxy as they go out. It's not proof, but it's certainly circumstantial evidence that strongly leads in that direction. I'm showing you proof that the solar system is changing, proof that the sun's heliosphere is shrinking, which suggests very strongly a galactic causation. If the galactic energy can make you more intelligent, and if all the species on the Earth are being reprogrammed in their DNA in 62 and 26 million year cycles, and if we're at the end of another 62 million year cycle right now, then let's put our hands together because we are awake and aware, and we're walking into the new age, maybe in 2012. Thank you so much. All right, I got a standing O, baby, standing O. Thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
Okay. David, thank you. That was absolutely superb, as usual. And wish we had more time for you, actually. David Wilcock, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for staying with us all this time, being so patient. And I just want to quickly say, Jordan Maxwell is selling these DVDs, I guess, or CDs of all his work outside on a table right outside the door. And that's the way you can support his work. And believe me, he needs all the support he can get. So your donations, even buying this and showing, pledging your support monetarily is very helpful. To all our witnesses, to everyone who's been on the stage today, I just want to say that most of whom have donated their time to come to Camelot and speak to you. We are going to try to reimburse them at the other end of the monetary scale here when we figure out whether or not we really did make money. I know we're clear as far as the initial deposit and all that, so you guys made that possible. So we did break even and we went beyond that. I don't know how far beyond, but it's really a wonderful thing, and thank you so much for that.
I want to ask Kerry Cassidy a question here in public. Kerry?
I'm sorry?
I'm asking you a question.
Okay, wait 1 second. Wendy from the Granada Forum has DVDs for sale over in that corner. So after we break, if you could also show your support by helping her out. She spent a lot of time and money. I want to thank Ted. Ted, what's your last name? I'm sorry? Saint Rain. Is that Illuminati? No, I'm just kidding. Ted St. Rain, a wonderful filmmaker here, and he's almost filmed every conference out there. I have to tell you, he's an amazing guy running those cameras, and thank you very much for that. I also want to thank Dan Bender, who's been running the streaming, and the internet audience for participating. And if there's so many people to thank for this conference. I want to thank, I want to thank Don Bogatz, who is our investor who made this possible, and just a terrific amount of people that made this all possible. So thank you very much. We can't name you right here. We actually have to get out of the room right now. But,
I want to ask Kerry Cassidy my public question here. This is unrehearsed because everything we do is unrehearsed, as I think you probably know. I want to ask Kerry, is this the last Awake and Aware in LA conference, or is this the first?
Oh, that's a good question. There's no way of knowing. We have other people wanting to invite us to other cities, so we basically want to continue this kind of ground crew effort. This was our first shot at it, Project Camelot ourselves organizing something. Seemed to go very well, I have to say, and so thank you very much for all of that. And be our guests if you want to organize a conference. Apparently Europeans are doing it in 1 week. So, there's your challenge, all right?
You don't have to have 400 people in a room to have a conference. 40 people in a room is a conference. pick up this ball and run with it. You don't have to wait for us to do something and then you will come along and sit in the audience and then we all have this kind of weekend experience. You can do this yourselves. As David said very, very eloquently, there's nothing special about him. There's nothing special about us, but we're very committed.
I am pretty amazing, though, you got to admit.
We're very committed, we're very determined, and we feel that we're here for some kind of a purpose, and we're figuring it out as we go along. We know from having talked with you privately that many of you feel the same thing. So whatever you want to do, just start it. And you never know what the future is going to hold. We encourage you to do what we have done and to spread this torch as far as wide as you possibly can do.
Okay, I want to say we're all special, and everyone has special gifts, and just find your gifts and give to the world, and we'll be an amazing, amazing race of beings, as we already are. Let's demonstrate it.
Lastly, the last thing I'd like to leave us with here is that these guys are not Illuminati agents. They're not paid by the government as disinfo. This is a grassroots effort. It has come from the blood, sweat, and tears of these two people who are very dear and loving friends of mine. And I am so honored to be here, and I'm so glad you guys invited me. And I would like to say that all of your donations out there make it possible that all the content Project Camelot gives you is free. Even the conferences are free on the internet. All the videos are free. They've never even charged for anything they've done. It's 100% reliant upon either you showing up here at a conference and paying for the conference, or even better, sending in donations so they can continue to do what they're doing. Because if you don't help them financially, and Kerry's going to go back to JPL or something, Bill's going to have to do, I don't know what he's doing. He never wants to tell anybody. But, you know, the fact is, your donations make this possible. This is a grassroots effort, and the green energy is a very wonderful way to love them. But even more than that, thank you guys so much for continuing to stick it through the good times, the bad times. Thank you on behalf of everyone here, which will be shown by their applause.